Here we go. All right, I think we're up and running. Okay, good morning, everybody. It is almost 11, so we're going to get started on our flexibility fusion class soon. The equipment that you're going to need for today. So first of all, you're going to need a band. So something long enough that you can grab, wider than shoulder width apart. So if you have like a TheraBand where it's just a strip and it's not connected, that's 110% fine. So that's the first piece that you're going to need. The second one that you're going to need is a foam roller, or if you have a soccer ball or a basketball or something like that, it doesn't necessarily need to be a foam roller. So something else that you can use that is a spherical shape. The third piece you're going to need is a dowel or a broomstick or a hockey stick or lacrosse stick, whatever you may have, but we're going to use this for a couple stretches, so you're going to need something like this. And then the fourth piece that you're going to need is a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball or a ball hockey ball, or if you have a ball made out of duct tape, whatever you have, that's totally fine. You're going to need something like this. So we're going to give it about another minute or so. Going to wait for my behind the scenes buddy Audie Brooks to join in with us, and then we'll get started on the flexibility fusion class. Oh, there he is. What's up, Audie? Already waiting for a couple more people to join here, and then we're going to get started. So if you're just joining into the class, it's 11:01 here Alberta time, so good morning. It is nice and rainy here in Alberta, so the perfect kind of morning to do a flexibility fusion class. And if you're tuning in from somewhere else, I hope you're having a great day and a great short week after that long weekend. So equipment that you're going to need for today: a ball, preferably a lacrosse ball. If you don't have one, no big deal. If you have a tennis ball, hockey ball, a dog toy would even work too, or a ball made out of duct tape, really anything that is about the size of a lacrosse ball. The second piece that you're going to need is a stick of some sort. So whether you have a dowel, or I just used the handle off of a broom, if you have a hockey stick, if you have a lacrosse stick, something like that, that's 110% fine. The third piece that you're going to need is a band. So now I know may not be something that all of you have, but I'm going to use it for today's class. So if you don't have something like this, that's 110% fine. It can still be, the exercises can still be done without a band. This is just nice to add a little bit of resistance. So if you have a band, if you just have a TheraBand where it's not completely connected, that's 110% fine. Something that you can grab a bit wider than shoulder width apart. And then the fourth piece of equipment that you're going to need is a foam roller, or if you have like a soccer ball or a basketball, volleyball, something along those lines that's about that shape, that's 110% fine. We're not actually going to be foam rolling. We just need this piece for a couple of the exercises that we're going to do. So it is 11:02, so let's get started. So good morning, everybody. My name is Kristin. I'm a fitness and sports instructor here at CFB Edmonton, and I am going to be taking you through your flexibility fusion class for this rainy Thursday morning here in Edmonton. Behind the scenes, I have my coworker, Audie Brooks. If you have any questions, concerns about any of the exercises or anything like that, feel free to give him a shout in the comments. Make sure you have some water handy, even though we're not working out, still having that just in case. Sometimes the stretches for different individuals can be a little bit more intense, and if you want to play like your own kind of relaxation music in the background, feel free to do so. I'm not going to play anything just for the sake of everybody being able to hear me. The last kind of housekeeping thing we have to go over is just our disclaimer before we start our class. So in response to COVID-19, PSP is offering virtual fitness to Canadian Armed Forces members. By using social media platforms, the virtual fitness classes tailored to Canadian Armed Forces personnel become accessible to all. Participants who are not Canadian Armed Forces members recognize and acknowledge that their age, health status, and physical fitness level are unknown, and it is entirely up to each individual to assess their ability to participate in this class. Since it is preferable to consult your physician before beginning any exercise program, we invite all participants who are not Canadian Armed Forces members to consult the Get Active questionnaire of the Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology and its reference document, which Audie is going to put down in the comments below. If you experience any pain or difficulty during the exercises presented in this video, it is recommended that you stop and consult a healthcare provider. For all you Canadian Armed Forces members, if any of you sustain an injury during this video, please remember to fill out ACF 98. Okay, so we've gone over all of the equipment that we need. So now let's get into the class. So today's class, I thought we would focus a little bit on our posture. Obviously, with the amount of maybe more home time, more screen time that we're having, hanging out at home, that our posture probably is maybe not looking 100% what it should be. So if you've been at home doing a lot of this, right? Probably a lot of this. Animal Crossing, right? Watching Netflix, Too Hot to Handle, whatever you're watching, or taking, some unplanned naps, most likely in this position. We're probably starting to live in this position a lot more, which is not the most anatomically correct or optimal position for our body to be in. So now, within being in this position for a long period of time, if your posture was even like this before, COVID-19 kind of started, you're probably experiencing maybe a little bit more back pain or discomfort, typically right in between the shoulder blades is probably where you're getting it. So today I'm going to show you some exercises and some stretches that are going to be a lot better for you than just, say, going up against the wall and trying to dig into those muscles with a lacrosse ball. We're not going to do any foam rolling today. So if you don't have a foam roller, these are all exercises that you can do that you don't need a foam roller for, and will be a lot more beneficial for you. So after an extended period of time of us being in this position, we start to develop something that's commonly referred to as upper cross syndrome. So being in this slouched position. So what it's characterized by is rounded shoulders. We have a forward head position, if you've been at our keyboard a lot, and then a lot of rounding through the mid to upper back. So all of the musculature or the soft tissue in the front part of our body and our anterior chain becomes tightened. So instead of our muscle fibers being like this in a nice neutral state, they become contracted and they become very, very close together, and then they don't like to be apart. The opposite is for the back side of our body, or our posterior chain. So all the muscles on our back side are being lengthened as we're being in this rounded position. So then instead of our muscle fibers being like this, they become like this. And then they can't contract in any way, shape, or form. They can't reach each other. So then those muscles become weak. So our anterior chain becomes very, very, very tight, and our posterior chain becomes lengthened and more or less weak. But it's going to give you the exact same symptom as having pain, discomfort, so on and so forth. So sometimes it's kind of hard to differentiate between a muscle that is tight and a muscle that is weak, because they will give us the exact same symptom of more or less having that discomfort or pain. So now when we're in this position here, this can really affect our ability to do daily things, functional things, things that are related to our job or our sport, and being in this position here. One of the things that actually can be compromised is our breathing, because our thoracic cavity, where our lungs are, is more or less compressed. It's contracted. So we don't have that ability to actually use the full capacity of our thoracic cavity. Now, when we're in this position here, our mid-back, our thoracic spine, which is where all of our ribs are attached to, it has to be able to move to a certain extent. It has to be able to extend. It has to be able to rotate with us. So now when we're in this position here for an extended period of time, and it becomes very, very, very tight, then that range of motion in our thoracic spine is going to be limited, is going to be compromised. So now what that's going to lead to is when one joint or a section of joints, in this particular instance, our thoracic spine, when one area is limited, that range of motion has to be made up for somewhere either up or down the kinetic chain. And in this situation, it's typically down. So this position here can actually lead to a lot of low back problems as well. So if you haven't really been paying attention to your posture over the last, couple months that we've been working from home, that you may not be experiencing not just only some upper body pain, some mid back pain, you may also be starting to exhibit some low back pain. The other thing you might be starting to exhibit is maybe a lot of like migraine-like symptoms or tension-like symptoms through the head somewhere. So now that is more or less going to be related to this forward, what I refer to as a poke neck posture, with us sticking our chin out like this. So now what it does is it puts a lot of tension in these little muscles that are just below our skull. There's a group of muscles there that kind of help our head sit on our spine and keep it in a correct posture. And when they're being tightened and some of them lengthened in this position for a long period of time, they can become super, super, super tight. And now what these muscles do is they have something that are called referral patterns. So when those muscles become tight, they're going to put pressure on the nerves that innervate those muscles, and it's going to more or less radiate or send tightness or tension or pain to different parts around the head. So if you've been getting some tension headaches, maybe right here, kind of on your temporal bone, or maybe behind like your eyebrows, kind of like behind your eye socket, or maybe up in here, kind of more or less like a migraine headache symptom, it may not necessarily be due to that you do actually have a headache. It can actually be due to your posture and how incorrect it is, and these little muscles in just at the base of our skull that are actually radiating pain up and towards our head. So now that we've kind of gone over a little bit of our posture and why we might be here and the symptoms that we're going to start to exhibit, we're going to get into our class. So the first thing that I want us to do is I want us to go over a little bit of a posture check before we go into any sort of our exercises. So for this, you're going to need a wall of some sort, okay? So I'm just going to scooch my camera up a little bit closer, and I'm just going to go over here to my rack here, and we're going to go over some posture things. So now typically for our posture, if we've been walking around like this, we have kind of a lot of hunchback symptoms or postures going on. So let's try and correct that. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to go up against a wall or a pole in your house or whatever you have, and I just want you to stand against it. So now probably here, if you're just standing normally like I am, you should feel the back of your head in contact with the wall, and you should also feel your tailbone kind of right in the low back is touching the pole, right? So from here, what I can already tell you is that my hand, I can fit a whole arm's length behind my back, which means that my upper back is hyperextended, my rib cage is open, and my lower back is being extended. So now there's a couple things we have to correct. So from here, the first thing that I want you to think about is depressing the rib cage. So it's not here, it's not lifted. I want you to think of connecting the bottom of your rib cage with the top of your pelvis. So that is going to automatically tilt the pelvis under, depress the rib cage, and we should be more flat. So now that I do that, I cannot fit a hand behind my low back. So this is more or less what we refer to as more of a spinal neutral position. So from here, the rib cage is down, the tailbone is tucked under. You should automatically feel your core fire. From here, I want you to think about tucking your chin. So you should almost feel the base of your skull touching the back of your wall or your pole or whatever you are on. Now this posture here might feel super weird, super foreign, and super incorrect to some of us. But that's just because we're not used to this position. as a society, we live in our pain. We live in the positions that are the absolute worst for us. So being in this position here might be super comfortable for you, but it's so wrong. This position here might feel like it's a lot of hard work, which it is. You're right. You're not wrong, because these muscles in the back are not used to actually doing that work. So this postural correction or check that we just kind of did, this is more or less what we're going to revert back to at the end of the class to see if this posture feels a little bit better. So we're going to kind of take a little bit of a top-down approach. So first of all, we're going to start with the neck. So now at the beginning of this class, I mentioned that we do a lot of this poke neck position, right? So if you're getting a lot of pain in the back of your neck, some of you, might be doing neck rolls and blah, 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 things that are just completely uncontrolled. So instead of doing these neck rolls or whatever you might be doing to alleviate some of that tension, let's get a nice posture going on, just like how we corrected over on the wall or on the pole. So the rib cage is down, the pelvis is slightly tucked under, and our shoulders are pulled back a little bit more. And then the chin is tucked. So this is actually the first exercise we're going to start with. It's called a chin tuck. So you can even put your 2 fingers on your chin if you want. And it's going to sound super funny, but what I want you to think about is that you're going to try and make the prettiest double chin that you can. That's the best analogy that I can give you for this exercise. So from here, we're in our nice neutral position. I just want you to think about tucking the chin. So you're retracting the head and tucking your chin down. So we're actually getting these muscles that are at the base of the skull, at the top of the neck, we're strengthening them. That's what we're doing during this exercise. So instead of them being lengthened and weak, we're tucking back our chin and we are strengthening these muscles. So I want you to do 2 sets of 10. So just sitting up nice and tall and tucking that chin back and down. You should almost feel like in the back of the skull, it's kind of opening. It should almost feel alleviating is more or less what it should feel like. So you're going to tuck your chin and back, and tuck your chin and back. So think of making that double chin. I know it's not the most, appealing position or thing to think about, but we got to get these muscles in the back of our neck strengthened up a little bit more. So we're doing 2 sets of 10 of these chin tucks, just at your own time. So you're sticking the chin out and then you're activating these muscles in the back and strengthening them. So then you should more or less be in this position here. So we have 2 sets of 10 of those. It might be a super, super foreign exercise, probably because you've never done it. Maybe you've never thought about it, but this is going to help us correct our posture a little bit more. If you want to add a little bit of weight to it per se, if you were to say hang yourself off of the side of your bed or a couch or a chair or something like that where gravity is acting down, if you're doing the exercise face down, you can still practice these chin tucks, but you have a little bit more of gravity, a little bit more weight acting with you to make the exercise just a little bit harder, okay? So now that we've done our 2 sets of 10, we're going to address the other muscles in the base of the skull that are quite tight. So now there's a group of them with very, very long names. So some of them are lengthened, and with our first exercise, we strengthen them. And now with this exercise, we're going to give a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of a release to the muscles at the base of the skull that need a little bit of a stretch. So we're going to go into that chin tuck position. And then from there, what I want you to think about is kind of doing a circular motion in this stretch. So you're going to retract the chin, and then you're going to draw the chin down towards the chest, and you're almost going to think like you're lifting the back of your skull kind of up and over is more or less what I want you to think about. So I'll just kind of face the other way. So you're going to tuck your chin, and then you are going to make like a circular motion. So you're kind of doing like a counterclockwise action like so. So tucking the chin, you can use the backhand as a little bit of a guide for your skull. And you should feel a really nice release. You should almost feel a little bit lighter at the base of the neck in performing these exercises. So you're going to retract the neck, and then you're going to perform that stretch. holding it for about 3 to 5 seconds and then relaxing. So because it's nice and early in the morning-ish, if you're just kind of getting moving, try not to be too aggressive with some of these stretches, as if your body's not warm, if it's not ready, if you've been sleeping like this for a really long time, those muscles are going to be a little bit sensitive. So maybe you've had a nice hot shower, or maybe you've put like a hot beanie on your neck. Those are all great things to do before doing these stretches. So let's do a set of 10 of those chin tucks with the stretch. So chin tucks, and then kind of making that rotation a little bit with the neck. So we're going to do one set of 10 for this exercise. How we doing here? How we feeling? Put a thumbs up in the comment if you can tell that your posture has been like this for a really long time and you've been getting quite a bit of mid-back pain. Just throw an emoji in there, like a high five or a hands up or whatever, if you've actually been getting some of these symptoms, okay? Because I want to see how many of you have been paying attention to your posture and see if it's been getting, you know, not so good, if we got to improve it a little bit more, okay? So we're doing one set of 10 of that stretch there. The next set of stretches that we're going to do are going to address some of the muscles that are attached to the neck. So we're going to do 3 different stretches that are going to attack 3 different muscles. So the first part of the stretch is what I want you to do is, if we are stretching our left side, you're going to put your left hand, you can either place it under your thigh or under your glute, or you can actually hold onto your chair or your stool or whatever you are sitting on to make sure that that shoulder stays down and away from the ear so that we can actually do the stretch appropriately. So we're going to do 3 neck stretches. So the first one that we're going to do is, what I want you to think about is taking the ear of the opposite shoulder that we're stretching, and I want you to think about that you're bringing that ear down and towards your armpit, almost like you're listening to that armpit, if that makes sense, if that analogy kind of makes sense with you. So you're going to take the opposite ear and then you're going to take it down into the armpit, and it's almost like you're going to be listening to that armpit, if that kind of makes sense. Holding for 3 to 5 seconds and then coming back. We're going to do a set of 5 on each side. So making sure that shoulder is nice and depressed. You can actually tell in the video here how much lower this shoulder is sitting as opposed to my other one, just by holding onto the seat. So we're getting a nice stretch with this exercise. So taking that ear, and it's almost like you're listening to the armpit on the other side, and then coming back. Bringing it down, listening to the armpit, holding for 3 to 5 seconds, and then bringing it back. So we're doing a set of 5 on each side. So now this first one that we're doing is a stretch for our upper trap. So that's the first muscle that we're addressing. Switch over to the other side after you've done your set of 5, and take note to see maybe if one side feels a little bit tighter than the other. Maybe you can't listen to that opposite armpit as closely as you can to one side. So once again, making sure that the shoulder is depressed. Then we're taking the opposite ear and kind of taking it down into that armpit and pretending like we're listening to that armpit for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then coming back. Listening, holding for 3 to 5 seconds, and then coming back. So this stretch here is addressing our upper trap. So we're going to do a set of 5 on each side, holding for about 3 to 5 seconds. So now the next exercise that we're going to do, we're going to go back to our first side, holding on to the bottom of your chair, your stool, whatever you may have, or even if you're just sitting on the ground, up on your knees, tucking your hand underneath your thigh is 110% fine too. So first one, we listened to our armpit. This time, we're going to smell our armpit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your nose and you are going to rotate it down in towards your armpit of the opposite side that you're stretching. So I'm stretching my left, I'm rotating my nose down and in towards my armpit on the right side, holding for 3 to 5 seconds, and then coming back. So now you should feel a stretch in a different place during this exercise than you did the first one. So making sure that shoulder is nice and depressed, taking the nose, rotating it down and in towards the armpit, holding for 3 to 5 seconds, and then coming back. So once again, we're going to do a set of 5 on each side, okay? Set of 5 on each side. So I'm going to flip over to the other side, making sure that the shoulder is sitting nice and low, then rotating my nose down in towards my armpit. So now for myself, I can tell that my right side is a lot tighter than my left. But if you're right hand dominant, so say you drive with your right, or you write with your right, or maybe you mouse a little bit more with your right, it makes sense that that right side is going to be a little bit more jacked up per se than as opposed to your left. So I'm going to give a couple nice stretches to my right side here. So making sure that shoulder is depressed and then rotating that nose down and in towards the armpit. Holding for 3 to 5 seconds, and then coming back. If you find that one of these stretches is just like hitting that money spot for you, then do another set of 5 on each side by all means. If you are nice and warm and you're really feeling that nice stretch, absolutely go for it. And then rotating the nose towards the armpit. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to switch back over to the other side. If you're still enjoying that second stretch, then that's great. That second stretch that we just did attacks our muscle in our neck. It's called our levator scapulae is what it's referred to as. So if you kind of break it down, levator, elevate, scapulae, shoulder blades up. So that muscle is responsible for basically bringing our shoulders towards our ears. So hopefully after this session of these 3 stretches here, we might start to feel a little bit more royal per se, that our shoulders are sitting a little bit further away from our ears, which is the name of the game right now. So the last one that we're going to do is attacking the muscles on the front of the neck. So sometimes if you kind of like strain your neck like that, sorry, that was not the best face in the world, but to see these muscles on the front of your neck, they're called your scalenes, and they're a set of 3 muscles. So now these are the muscles that are going to become tight as we're doing that poke neck forward position like that. So this stretch is going to attack these muscles that kind of sit on the front of the neck. So once again, we're keeping that shoulder nice and low, and what you're going to do is you're going to bring ear of the opposite side of the side that you're stretching, and you're just going to do a little bit of side flexion. And now what I want you to do is turn your chin up towards the ceiling just a tad, and then rotate it back down, reset, and come back. So we're doing side flexion, rotate your chin upwards. You should feel that nice stretch right through the front of the neck, and then reverse and come back to neutral. Okay, so make sure that if you can't really get your chin all the way up to the ceiling, that's fine. Take that rotation as you need to. If it's minimal and you feel that stretch, awesome. That's 110% fine. So once again, doing 5 on each side, holding for that 3 to 5 seconds. I'm going to switch over to my other side because I know that my right side is going to be much tighter. So making sure that shoulder is sitting nice and low. And then we are going to side flex the head and then take the chin slightly up towards the ceiling, and I feel that quite nice. I feel it a little bit more. I basically feel it right kind of like from the base of my neck all the way down. So I definitely feel it a lot more on this side. So if you're feeling it a lot more on one side as opposed to the other, make sure we allow and we kind of embrace those imbalances. Don't try and force your tighter side into a position that maybe your looser side is able to do. So make sure that you just are kind of like listening to your body during these exercises, and make sure always to breathe. Holding your breath creates tension in your body. So make sure we are always doing great diaphragmatic breathing. I know that we've talked about it quite a few times in numerous of our videos. So making sure that we're doing that diaphragmatic breathing, because if we're keeping all of our breath up in our chest and making our neck and our shoulders work, it's going to be undoing the work that we're just doing now, these stretches, to try and kind of correct our posture. Okay, so those 3 stretches are things that you can even do if you're sitting at your desk. You can incorporate them as kind of like mini breaks. So just to kind of recap them, the first one was an upper trap stretch where we had to think about listening to the opposite armpit. The second one we did was for our levator scapulae, which is kind of one of our shoulder shrugging muscles, and you want to think about smelling the opposite armpit. And then for the last one, for our scalenes, for the muscles on the front, you want to do the side tilt and then the slight rotation upwards, looking up towards the ceiling. So those are the 3 different variations of the stretches. And if you feel it a lot more with one than maybe as opposed to the other 2, then feel free to do that one as much as you like. Alrighty? Okay, so next part of the workout that we're going to do is we are going to focus on correcting or helping out this here, this kind of like hunchback position that we like. So we're probably getting our shoulders a little bit more away from our ears now after we've done those stretches, but we still kind of got this hunchback thing going on. Okay, so we're going to kind of work our way into a couple exercises and then eventually some activation and some strengthening exercises that are going to help this position feel a little bit more normal, a little less painful. So I'm just going to tilt my camera down here. The first exercise that we're going to do is a thoracic rotation. So now what you're going to do is you are going to get down into kind of a child's pose position. But instead of our arms being extended, you're going to bring your elbows in nice and close, and you're going to place them down right by your knees. So now the first variation of this stretch is you're going to take one arm and you're going to place it palm up, and you are going to put it in the small of your back. So now from here, this shoulder that is on the bottom, the supporting shoulder, is actually the one that's doing all of the work. Okay, so focus on this shoulder. So from here, what I want you to do is I want you to open up towards your open side with the arm that is back, and really make sure that that shoulder is activated and rotating you away. Holding for about 2 to 3 seconds here, and then we're going to come back down. Then we're going to rotate back up and then come back down. So even as you're rotating, take your gaze with you as far as you can. So we're going to do 6 repetitions on each side. Now, once again, you might feel that one side is able to rotate a lot better than the other side. That's 110% fine. Just don't force your body into a position that it's not quite ready for yet. So flipping over to the other side, once you've done your 6, hand is in the small of the back with the palm up. We are going to rotate, taking the gaze up, holding for 2 to 3 seconds, and then coming back down. So my shoulder of my supporting arm is doing all the work. I'm actually activating all the muscles around my shoulder blade to help me rotate and then come back down. You should feel this exercise right in the middle of your back. We're working on thoracic rotation with this exercise. So we're trying to improve our range of motion that we have in our mid-back. So now that's step number 1 for this exercise. Step number 2 is we're going to progress it a little bit more. So instead of the hand being in the low back, you're going to take your hand and you're going to place it behind your head. So now what this is going to do is it's going to move our rotation a little bit more up the thoracic spine. So maybe into a little bit of a tighter area for some people. So from here, what you're going to do is you are going to rotate upwards, same as the first version of the exercise, and back down. Rotate upwards and back down. So once again, we're going to be doing a set of 6 on each side. So this exercise, you should feel it a little bit higher up in between the shoulder blades, not as low as the first version of the exercise. You should be feeling it a little bit higher up. And you may not be able to rotate as far, which is kind of the point of the exercise. So that's 110% fine. So hand on the back of the head, activating the bottom shoulder, rotating upwards, and then coming back down. Rotating, taking the gaze up towards that elbow, and then back down. So once again, doing a set of 6 on each side, working on that thoracic rotation. How are we feeling? How are we looking? Is our posture almost there? We're not quite corrected yet. No worries, we're going to get there. Alrighty, so the next exercise that we're going to do, you are going to need your broomstick for. So broomstick, lacrosse stick, hockey stick, whatever you may have, 110% fine. So the first exercise that we worked on was for thoracic rotation. Now we are going to work on extension. Our thoracic spine has to have about 20 to 25 degrees of extension in order for it to be considered normal. So if you've been in this position a lot, I don't think you're going to be achieving that 20 to 25 degrees of extension without compensating somewhere down or up the kinetic chain. So if you do get that 20 to 25 degree extension, I highly suspect that your low back is probably overextending as well. Okay, so now we're gonna work on an exercise that is going to help improve that extension through the thoracic spine a little bit. And it's also going to get us a really nice lat stretch. Now, our lats are our main shoulder stabilizing muscle. So this is also going to give a very nice stretch to that muscle as well. So I'm going to show you the two parts of this stretch. So you're going to grab your hockey stick, your dowel, whatever you may have, and you're going to do it in a supinated way. So palms are going to be facing up. On your stool, your bench, your chair, whatever you may have on your couch, anything will really work. You are going to place your elbows on that surface. From there, you're going to scoot your knees back so that they are stacked directly above your hip or below your hips, pardon me. So now from here, what I want you to think about doing without hyperextending the low back, I want you to think of pressing your chest in between your arms and thinking about this mid part of your back is leading that portion, okay? So I want you to think about keeping the low back nice and neutral, then you're pressing your chest in between your arms and you're trying to get a little bit of extension through that mid back. Once again, holding for about 5 seconds or so, coming back and resetting. We're gonna do a set of 5. So once again, positioning, palm is gonna be up, elbows on the bench, pushing the hips back just slightly, making sure that the knees are directly underneath the hips, and then you're going to press your chest in between your arms. And you should feel a lot of work right in the mid-back. So that's the first part of the stretch. The second part of the stretch is going to become more muscular, or we're going to get it down and towards our lats. So it's the exact same position on the bench, except this time, not leading with our chest, we're going to round through the upper body. We're actually going to arch. And you should feel that stretch all the way down through here. So you can actually roll between these two stretches, attacking two different parts of the body as an entirety of a stretch. So from here, we go back to our thoracic extension, we press our chest through, and then we come back and we round our upper back, getting that nice lat stretch. Then we push through, getting that extension through the thoracic spine, and then rounding once more. So we're gonna roll through these two positions 5 times. So do 5 of just the extension, 5 of just the lat stretch where we're rounding our body, and then do 5 more of alternating between the thoracic extension and then the rounding through the lat stretch. So I'll give everybody about 20 more seconds to roll through those exercises and get them done. Really think about pushing that chest in between your arms and then rounding through. Pushing the chest between the arms, right in between the shoulder blades is where you should feel the work, and then rounding through. So we're going to roll through those positions, those 2 positions, 5 times. If you're finishing up, grab a quick sip of water. Once again, make sure you're breathing and you're not holding your breath. We're trying to alleviate some of the tension in the body. Holding our breath is only going to do the exact opposite of what we want it to do. Okay, so if you're grabbing a sip of water, finishing up your next couple last couple repetitions of your exercises, the next piece of equipment you're going to need for our next stretch is your foam roller or volleyball, soccer ball, basketball, whatever you may have. Doesn't really matter. All we're just gonna kind of use it for is a bit of positional feedback is more or less what it's going to be for. So we're not actually going to be doing any foam rolling in any way, shape, or form. So this next exercise that we're going to be doing, I refer to it as a side lying